Never have I ever had to use an Android phone to make the Apple product work. But that's a situation I find myself here with the PowerBeats 2 Pro. A review I thought would be easy, and in particular a fitness-focused, heart rate-focused review. After all, one of the main features, and not the main feature for fitness people, is the fact that the PowerBeats 2 Pro has an optical heart rate sensor on both sides. So right there, a little optical heart rate sensor, it has green lights in it, and it goes ahead and measures your pulse. And Apple says they put in over 1,500 hours of testing against 1,000 athletes, and it is incredibly accurate. And I'm here to talk about whether or not that is true. But first, as I found out, there's actually a lot more to the way this works. Now, this product, like all Beats products, is fully compatible with both Apple as well as Android. And that's a good thing because I, as mentioned, had to use the Android phone to actually make this work. So let me just do a very brief overview of how it's supposed to work, then how I got it working, and then we'll get into the actual accuracy sides. You don't want to skip any of those three things, by the way, because they are all super important. So how it's supposed to work is I take my handy dandy iPhone right here, I open up the Beats, it automatically pairs to it, and that part worked just fine. It paired right into, you can see it right there, it paired right into my iPhone, no problems at all there. No problems playing music. All the new music features, they all work fine. In terms of the music playback and stuff, this is not a music focused audio review, it's focused on the heart rate and fitness side of it, but that all was fine to me for the price point that these are at. Meanwhile, if you're on the Android side of things, you go ahead and open up your Android phone. You can install the Beats app. That app gives you more controls over the settings, but you don't actually have to if you don't want to. You can go straight into the Bluetooth menu like you normally would for any other Bluetooth audio device and pair it straight in there. Now, it should be noted that inside the package, there's a whole bunch of different ear tips there. There's medium ones already on the PowerBeats 2 Pro, and there's a separate set of extra small, small, large, and extra large. Okay, so far so good on the audio side. Let's dive into that heart rate piece. So the goal of these things is to broadcast out a heart rate profile, just like a heart rate strap. In fact, using the exact same profile that's been around for about 15 years now to broadcast our heart rate to anything that you want. Apple talks about using gym equipment or other devices that support the heart rate standard. All, again, pretty straightforward and well established in this realm. And it's important to note that by default, the heart rate sensor in this is enabled but not turned on. You can always disable it like flat out across the board of both Android and iOS, but it's enabled by default. However, in order to get it to broadcast heart rate, you have to double tap it. So you put the PowerBeats in your ear, and then you tap once and then long tap, and then you'll hear a little chime that basically means the heart rate pairing is on. You'll be able to see the green light there. In daylight, you can kind of barely see it, but at night, it's actually quite bright. You'll see that glowing on both sides of your ears. There is sensors on both of these. You do have to have both of them in. It will not measure unless both of those are there, meaning it's actually using the values from both of them and kind of figuring out what's correct. And inside of that, there's basically three little green lights and then a photodiode to measure those lights, very similar to other optical heart rate sensors on the market. The optical heart rate sensor only turns on when you do that process. It's not on the entire time. Because this little black pad is on the outside of the ear tip, as you see right there, it's a different part than where the music comes. The music comes from, of course, that little inner tip right there. So I start off on the Apple ecosystem side, trying to use my Mac with an application called Zwift, which is a very popular indoor cycling app, but it wasn't finding the heart rate sensor. So I tried that on the Mac, it didn't work. I said, you know what, I'm gonna back into the iPhone instead. Let's try to get it working on one iPhone. I used the Strava app, it didn't work. I used the Peloton app, it didn't work. I used the Wahoo Fitness app, it didn't work. I tried some other apps, nothing worked at all. None of the things that were on Apple's sheet of applications that would work. I even tried the Nike Run Club app, and that wouldn't work either. I wouldn't even see the thing. I then went through an hour and a half of troubleshooting steps, and I'm just gonna point out, I do this as my full-time job for 15 years now, so I am really good at troubleshooting things really quickly, and none of that was working. I even tried pairing it to bike computers and other watches, and you name it, nothing at all. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna remove it from the iPhone and try Android and see if that works. And sure enough, I paired up to Android, and instantly everything works. Like straight up across the board, perfection. I get music playback straight away with YouTube Music. I got heart rate straight away in the Wahoo app, in the Strava app, in the Peloton app. Everything is great. It's working just fine. That's just strange. So then I went back to try to pair it to the iPhone side, and the moment I unlock my phone, it zaps the heart rate connection on the Android side. Now, I'm going to save you a lot more troubleshooting here, and note that I'm not the only person to deal with this, the only fitness reviewer to deal with this. Des of DesFit also had the exact same problem, and we were going going back and forth on text message for hours on this. Shervin Shares, another YouTuber on fitness, also eventually gave up entirely and went to Android as well.
I could not get the heart rate monitoring to work.
But overall, I was able to connect to the Android third-party apps much easier than iPhone.
Which then gets to an interesting point. In Apple's marketing, they talk about pairing these up with gym equipment, allowing you to see your heart rate on gym equipment. In fact, the very second or third screen that you see when you pair these up the very first time to your phone talks about that exact thing and explains how it works. But in reality, the way this works is there's only a single connection allowed between the PowerBeats 2 Pro and another device, meaning that while there is two channels, heart rate and audio, those have to be going to the same other device. That means that if you had a treadmill or other gym equipment paired for heart rate, you can't listen to music from your phone, or any phone for that matter. And in fact, I went back to Apple to confirm this, because that seemed like that was a pretty ludicrous signal. Like, no, this certainly can't be the... Yep, it's the case. It's actually the way this works. What? That's the whole point of music on the treadmill, is to listen to the... Any case, at this point, I just decided to give up on my beloved iPhone and just went straight to the Android phone. So Pixel was a savior in this particular case, and now it is time to test accuracy. And just to give you a spoiler, it doesn't actually get any better from here. And I don't know if it's worse or just equal. Like on the list of bad, I'm not sure how you want to judge this, but in any case, I started off on this bike trainer back there, doing about an hour-long interval set of hell. And you can see I had the Android phone off the side using the Wahoo Fitness app to record my data. That's the only way I can get that data in there. And you know, in general, this actually started off pretty good. However, in a couple of the final intervals, when I was really hurting and moving a bit more, trying to get through those final pedal strokes on these intervals, I noticed it would drop out the connection. You can actually see it on the phone there. Go to that dash, which means null, meaning there's no heart rate data coming from the PowerBeats 2 Pro. Music was playing just fine. I was listening to music the entire time, but there was no heart rate data for brief periods of time. Overall, though, for this indoor trainer workout, it wasn't too bad. I was like, okay, this isn't bad. That's compared to a chest strap, a Polar H10 chest strap, also compared to the Apple Watch Ultra 2 in there as well as a Garmin watch. There's a bunch of other heart rate sensors I'm comparing to. Note, however, important thing, if you have an Apple Watch and this and your phone all paired together on the same account, it will always defer to the Apple Watch optical heart rate sensor over these within the internal magic of the iPhone. So just keep that in mind. That's just a slight hint that Apple knows how bad these things are, so they're using the watch instead, which is quite accurate, of course. In my case, though, because I removed this thing entirely from my Apple account, I could go ahead and have those separate things recorded, well, separately. And you'll see that quite obviously in my heart rate sets. Okay, so the initial indoor trainer ride, you know, it's fine, not bad at all. So then we moved to an outdoor run. I started off with an interval run at night, and I usually do a warm-up first, and you can see this warm-up right there. I'd point out, though, that it took like many minutes of standing around in the cold trying to get this thing to actually lock heart rate, which has been the case. It just takes a while to get it to lock. Once I got it to lock, though, off I went to start running. And you can see nearly immediately it was not good at all. But more than not good from an accuracy standpoint, it was dropping the heart rate just like I saw on the bike, but for far larger time periods. And what I quickly realized here is Apple is heavily biasing towards dropping the heart rate altogether versus showing you incorrect heart rate. Now, mind you, it's going to show you a lot of incorrect heart rate, but it seems like the sensitivity there is that they will drop the heart rate and give you no values whatsoever rather than giving you a wrong value, at least some of the time anyways. In fact, you can see this where I've color-coded the parts where it drops. And the way you can tell it drops is because the line goes perfectly straight. So it basically drops out. The charting software just simply connects the points there, but otherwise that is a straight drop. So then we look at the actual accuracy compared to the other sensors, and as you can see, like for what, 40% of the time it was wrong? That's really bad, by the way. That's really bad. But don't worry, it gets worse. So, figuring that maybe something was wrong, I double-checked everything was updated on the PowerBeats, the latest firmware, everything across the board was the way it should be. So I went out again this morning for another run. Here's that data right there without the color coding, but you know what, let's throw the color coding in. What do you want first, drops or do you want inaccurate? Let's go with the inaccurate heart rate. There is a sections where it's inaccurate. It's inaccurate, what, like 80% of the time, give or take? If we back that down to the dropout sections, you can see it dropped out a lot. And in fact, what I would do is I would stop when I would see it was fully dropped out or fully inaccurate. I would stop and just walk or even stop altogether for just a couple seconds to give it its best chance to catch up again. I would never do this for any other heart rate sensor out there, testing wise and stuff like that. But you know what? I wanted to see if maybe like it would lock and be good from there on. No, it just lost it again almost immediately. I play with different fit, by the way. I move things around. I also did the fit test that you can do in the Beats app to go ahead and validate the fit is correct. That was all fine as well according to the test there. It actually like plays music and does a little test there to figure out if it's good. That's mostly for audio, but that's of course all I had to go on aside from moving things around different positions, and again, that didn't make much of a difference either. And I think the whole dropout thing at first sounds noble, right? You're sitting there going, Apple's giving you a no value at all, which means that, you know, you shouldn't trust that number. Maybe the rest is fine. But in my mind, that's kind of like saying, you know what, I had an affair with a bunch of other people, but you know what, I use protection, so it's all right. Like, no, it's still wrong. It's still bad, useless data. The whole point of heart rate sensor is to give you heart rate data. And if it can't do that, either no data or bad data, it's still terribly useless as a heart rate sensor, regardless of how good this thing may be from an audio standpoint. Which then gets to kind of like my final thoughts on this. And I'm honestly really surprised. Apple is usually very, very good from an accuracy standpoint in, well, focusing on accuracy and focusing on ensuring the data they give out there is correct, or at least the vast majority of the time correct. Doesn't mean I always agree with the way they implement things in products. I've got plenty of disagreements there, but on the Apple Watch, accuracy is generally quite good, especially optical heart rate accuracy. I mean, they've been one of the leaders in optical heart rate accuracy for a number of years now, and this just like throws that out the window. But more than the accuracy, which is obviously horrific, is the entire experience. When myself and multiple other reviewers, we do this as jobs, have to use an Android phone to make this work, like, what? And then to say on top of that you can't show your heart rate on a treadmill at the same time you listen to music? Like every other competitor product does that just fine in this space. Again, their accuracy is also a hot dumpster fire, but at least they can show the thing correctly and play music, which is, again, the whole point of headphones is to play music. Ultimately, I just don't get it. I'm completely flabbergasted. I thought this would be like an easy review, like easy at least technically, and then maybe they'll get the accuracy right on the optical heart rate side, but neither of those things were correct. But you know what? I do at least like the color orange. So there you go. With that, hope you found this review interesting or useful. Go ahead and give it a like or something on the bottom there, and I appreciate it. Have a good one.